just either they're slightly different from what they are, or when we talk, we see things are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars. I'm your host, Timothy. I am sitting here with my co-host, Allison. And how are you tonight, Allison?
I'm sleepy.
Yeah, we both took pre-podcast naps. I don't know
So
if that's
like
a good thing or not. Tonight we're going to be talking with Daniel, who has some pretty neat stories about this kind of haunted garage that he and his friend spent time in high school. Part of that story is this like possessed coyote mount, which seems pretty creepy.
Oh, like a taxidermy thing?
Yeah. And then he saw blue entities in the woods and a story of a little person and some owl strangeness as well. This coming Saturday, May 7th, I will be attending Free Comic Book Day as part of the Riverbend Comics crew, and that's going to be at Comic Store West in York. That's 2111 Industrial Highway in York, Pennsylvania. I'll be signing my books and copies of my variant cover for Department of Truth number 15. You can stop out and say hi to me and John from Riverbend. And speaking of Riverbend, they now carry The Witch Cloud. They have both versions. So Riverbend Comics will be the only place you can get the book with the download other than directly from us. You can get it from our Bandcamp. You can get it from our Etsy shop. But now you can get either the book by itself or the book and the download from Riverbend Comics as well. You can find them at riverbendcomics.com. Let's go ahead and hear Daniel's stories. Tonight we're talking with Daniel, who has a few stories to share with us, including some pretty interesting kind of high strangeness stuff and a story about some blue entities that I'm very excited to hear. How are you doing tonight, Daniel?
Oh, I'm doing good.
To get started with this strange stuff, at what point in your life did this stuff start?
Most of the stuff is kind of like a flap, if you will, kind of focused around my junior and senior year of high school, which was like a tumultuous time in my life. So of course that kind of like goes along with paranormal type stuff. But
it tends to, yeah.
Other than that, I don't think I had anything other than before that. I have some like dreams from when I was a kid that they got encoded as like memories, like waking up in the middle of the night and like toys flying around the room. And I'm positive those are dreams, but for the longest time, they were like, my brain categorized them as memories and not dreams. So
that's
that
interesting.
Would have been from,
So what changed that made you think that like they were dreams then? Just out of curiosity.
I guess nothing other than the fact that nothing, that has never happened since then. Mm-hmm. Any sort of, and it seems like something that would happen in a dream, but no, I thought they were memories for a long time, and they very well could be. I guess I have no reason to think that they weren't memories other than that was the only time that had ever happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an interesting detail. I mean, who knows? I can't say either. And I'm sort of asking for myself, too, because I have some of these things that I go back and forth on. Was I awake, really? Or was that some kind of dream,
Yeah. Yeah, or like, was that dream just a dream? Or was it
exactly
not just a dream? That's one that I'm sure everybody kind of deals with.
So as far as the stuff that started in high school, not to out you on your age, but about how many years ago are we talking?
Oh, about 10 plus.
And roughly, and you can be as general as you want, just, state or general region, just to give people an idea about where it was.
Northeastern Oklahoma.
Okay.
So right on the edge of the Ozarks Mountains, which is mostly in Missouri and Arkansas, but we're on the edge of it. So it's like the nice part of Oklahoma, the interesting part anyway.
Well, how'd it start?
All right, I looked over my email that I sent you, and the first thing that I talked about was I had a friend that he was a couple of years older, and we ran around a lot, and he was kind of one of my main buddies in high school, and he had this shop he had grown up there, and so his parents had like a mechanic shop, and they traveled for work at this point in time, and the house had flooded a long time ago, or not a long time ago, but whenever he was a kid, and so nobody lived in it. And he grew up in that house, and he always talked about like all sorts of weird stuff going on whenever he was a kid. And that shop, we would go out and hang out at that shop and work on people's cars and just general high school hooligan type stuff. Mm-hmm. And the shop, it was just like, it was always like a super weird vibe. And it was like two buildings, and one of them had been a storefront or something at some point in time. So it had like two glass doors, and the main, like the mechanic shop building had two bays, and those bays opened up and you could see the glass doors on that building. They were across. They weren't like super close, but you could like see in those doors. And that was always like, come out of there at night and like try not to look at the glass doors because people had seen stuff in them. I never saw anything in them per se, but there was just all sorts of like weird stuff. And he had weird stories about stuff moving in there. And the shop, you'd have to talk to him to get a really good understanding of all the bizarre stuff that happened at that shop. I can only speak for the stuff that I was there for. And like, you know, it kind of started out with like noises and like taps on stuff. And I remember one time specifically, we pulled up to the front of it at night, and his exhaust was like ticking in his truck, how they do whenever they're cooling off. Mm-hmm. And it just like kept going and kept going. And then it was like almost, it was more like rhythmic, I guess. And I remember walking over to the front of the truck. And by the time I got to the front of the truck, it was like, oh, that's on the inside of the garage door. Oh, that's nice. That's unsettling. But
oh, wow.
It was lots of stuff like that. Like tools wouldn't be where they were left, or lights would be on that were turned off. And just a general, like a vibe. But it wasn't super weird until they went and picked up a car from a friend of theirs that they knew from their work that they did. It was a late 50s, maybe early 60s Thunderbird. And they went and picked it up, and the guy was like trying to sell stuff. And I think he was kind of needing money. And he was giving them some stuff and selling them some stuff. And one of the things he gave them was this stuffed coyote. And it was like a coyote mount on a little thing. I mean, it was not super nice or anything, but it was like once that car got there and the coyote and all the other stuff. And I mean, it wasn't initially like the coyote, but it was like stuff was really weird. Like it like ramped up, like more stuff moving. And it was like, we would bring people out there and they would see stuff and like get totally wigged out. Like it was I don't know. It was just a vibe, really.
Did anyone ever describe what they saw?
Yes. Basically, a large shadow person. I never saw the shadow person. I feel like I got gypped because I spent some of the most time there. But my friend had seen the shadow person when he was a kid, which complicates the whole coyote thing. But that was like the first weird thing that happened. He was, and this is his story, but I've heard him tell it. I'll just tell a tiny little piece of it. He was at home alone whenever they still lived there, and somebody knocked at the door, and which was pretty normal because people would come out there to have his dad work on their car. And he went down and opened the door, and there was a large black shadow with red eyes. And he said it just like, he looked at it, it looked at him, and then he shut the door and went back upstairs and hid until his parents got there.
Wow.
And I mean, yeah. And so there were several people that had come out there that saw the black shadow, like through those glass doors or inside. There was like French doors on the house that was connected. It was to the side of the shop. And if you went down, we had like an area where we had a fire pit. And if you went down to where the fire pit was, when you were walking back, you could see those French doors. And so that was like another place. And maybe that's why I never saw it, because I was always like, I'm just not even going to look there. Those doors don't even exist. Mm-hmm. He and I would hear stuff and see stuff. And we were out there enough to where it was kind of normal. And we were kind of like almost brazen about it. Not like, you can keep doing this or whatever, but just laissez-faire.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed to keep it mostly at bay. But whenever sometimes people would come and they would react, and a lot of people left there terribly frightened. And so basically, I remember the weird stuff started happening more. I remember he opened the garage door and the coyote was there. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I just instantly, like all the hair on my body stood up, like that, whatever that brought something back with it. Like no doubt about it. Like super bizarre. And then it was like his brother started hearing stuff and seeing stuff, and his other brother did. And then I don't know, more people that were less, because we were pretty into it and it didn't really bother us. And so we almost probably egged it on to a certain point, like the stuff moving. And we would like, oh yeah, what did you move today? And the funny thing is, I was like super into it then. And I'm like not now. And nothing weird happens now. Like, well, nothing quite like that. Mm-hmm. Some weird things happen now and then, but not like this. Like it was ridiculous, honestly. It got to the point to where so many people were having these like weird experiences out there that his brother took the coyote and burned it.
Oh,
and
wow.
Then, yeah. I mean, I'm not doing a very good job of really translating the amount of weird things, but stuff started moving for other people, and like it just got more intense. And then the coyote got burned, and it kind of settled it. I think his mom went out there and had a talk, and they burned some sage and were like, you need to leave this place, you're not welcome here. And things kind of cooled down. And they ended up getting rid of the car too. And he says that there's still weird stuff going on at the shop, but there was like this period of time where it was like repeatable every single time something weird would happen, and we could bring anybody out there and it would like totally wig them out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just it's interesting to have like repeatable noises and stuff moving, and that's the kind of stuff you see in movies or like hear about.
Yeah.
And it was very strange. But the blue entity, and I said entity, I don't really know entity, but so that was with the same guy. So him and two other guys, we went coyote hunting, and it was night. And I was trying to remember, I'm pretty sure that it was legal to hunt coyotes at night as long as you didn't use a spotlight. Anyway,
I think it is in Pennsylvania here too. I think it is.
Because you think spotlighting deer, and that's a horrible thing.
Right.
They're like, yeah, that's not what we were doing. And so it was on my grandparents' property, and you could come in from this dirt road, and there was this pasture out in front of you, and then it curved around to the right, and there was another pasture that was like, basically one person could sit in this pasture, and the other two people could go up around the corner, and you wouldn't have to worry about shooting each other, essentially. Mm-hmm. So the one guy was like super terrified of coyotes, and it's like there's a coyote theme, but there's no coyote theme. Super scared of coyotes. Like would sit on the hood of his truck, was 100% sure that he was going to get murdered by coyotes, which is kind of preposterous. And so we were like, all right, you guys stay here, and we'll go up around the corner. There's a big tree in this field that we can sit under, try to call some in. And so he and I go around the corner, and it was like, oh, it feels weird over here. And I don't know if we heard anything before it, but we heard this like super loud, like bass, feel it in your chest growl. And we were like, oh, that's not good. I don't know what makes a noise like that. And one of the other guys had like called us, and he was like, we're hearing weird noises over here. And we were like, all right, well, we're going to sit here for a little bit longer, and then we'll come back, and then we can decide whether we're going to keep hunting or, go home. And so he and I leaned up against it's this huge white oak tree that's in the middle of this field with like no other trees around it for a while. And I actually talked to him yesterday and was asking him about what he remembered from this specific thing. And he was like, oh, well, I remember the weirdest thing was whenever I saw the tree, I had this like super intense, like dread feeling, which I did not remember that. He was like, I really did not want to go over there, but we did. Mm-hmm. And so I did not get that. And I didn't remember that. He must not have told me. So we're sitting under the tree. And I remember we were like looking off into the woods because we'd heard that weird noise. So we were like, you know, in that like mode. And there was like this faint, almost indiscernible blue thing out in the woods. Like it was glowing, but it was like, was it really there? Did you really see it? But we both saw it, but it was just so dull, just almost indiscernible, if that makes sense. And I kind of remember like maybe it was shaped kind of humanoid-ish, but it was just far enough away, just dull enough that it was probably putting any shape to it was wishful thinking, I guess. But we both saw it. We were like talking about it while we were out there. Like, what is that? I don't know. It was just so hard to really make anything out of it that it was like, you know, whatever. And so whenever we were leaving from there, we were walking away from the tree. So I had a rifle and he had his pistol out because we were weird noises, growls, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
There are indeed mountain lions around here, not, you know, like most places where they're not super prevalent. It's like, well, there's not technically mountain lions, but there are.
Right.
There's kind of, I mean, there are some black bear, but we were thinking mountain lions. And so we were backing away from there, and he had his pistol out. And this is the weirdest thing, because I've experienced lots of weird noises and stuff moved, and I've seen some things, but this was like, I don't know. I know for a fact he saw it when I saw it, like, no doubt, because he had his pistol out and he was aiming it kind of vaguely towards the tree. And so we're probably 12 or 15 feet from the tree, kind of backing away from it. And I don't even know. It was like a blue, like a tail, maybe, like the end of a tail, like it dipped out from behind, or like a tiny little arm dipped out from behind the tree and then went back behind it. And I know that he saw something the exact moment I saw something, because he jerked the pistol over to it. So that's like 100%, no doubt, validation that whatever I just saw was at least visible in this corporeal realm, you know, to somebody else. And that wigged us out. Like, we're backing away, and I was like, what was that? It's like, I don't know. And we just kept backing up. And then we got around the corner and went back to the truck. And I don't remember if we drove over there. I mean, I know we stayed out late that night, but it was like, I don't know, amorphous blue thing.
Was the blue thing at the tree similarly, was it similar in appearance and color to the blue things you would see, the other entities or whatever?
Similar color, like way more bright and like way closer, like this was like 10, 15 feet away. The thing that was in the trees was like so far away that it was like almost, you know, it was far enough away that it was like, is that even there? This was no doubt about it.
Right.
And I don't want to say like bright, like it was bright, but it was like it was glowing, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if it's similar to the lights I've seen at some of these places, but they're almost like self-illuminating in a way. It's like they don't cast light, but they have light. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's really hard to explain.
Like there's a light shining, but it only shines on them, basically.
Or into them or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's coming from them, but it doesn't shine anything around them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 100% how I would explain it.
Yeah, and I know, too, when you say, you know, it's kind of hard to, like it was there, but it was kind of faint, even though it was glowing. That's very, very similar to the lights we see at Site 7. And you literally have to let your eyes adjust, which seems silly, that you
for something that's glowing.
Right, yeah. Like you would need to let your eyes adjust to see it, but that's the way it is. I don't know how else to explain it.
It just doesn't make any normal sense.
No,
so it's hard to explain.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Did this activity that was around this time of your life, did it kind of taper off, or did it come to just stop one day, or?
Well, I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, I joined the Marine Corps and left and didn't come back for a period of time. So it just kind of, whenever I left, it just kind of didn't follow me, I guess, or I quit paying attention to it, or I was too busy to go out and do anything that might involve that, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think the stuff that I experienced, it was 100% like you're looking for it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I tell people, because I've told people these stories, and a lot of people, they've never had any sort of thing that they consider to be like this happen. And I've got a handful of pretty weird stories, regardless of how poorly I can explain the whole shop thing that happened. It's because we were looking for it, because we were open to it, and we were out there like looking. I mean, his shop wasn't like that because we were looking, but I feel like if you engage with whatever it is, and regardless of whether you're like inviting, just mocking it or whatever, not necessarily mocking it, but I think that probably would definitely garner activity if it was something real.
I wouldn't recommend people.
Yeah, that's yeah, definitely not. But some people would. That's the thing. People would come out there and be like, "Oh, nothing's going to scare us."
Right.
Well, okay, that's fine. It might not, but it probably will. And there's a bunch of people that, in that shop time period, they just stopped coming. Like people would, be like, "Oh, it can't be that weird," and then people would not come anymore. And like, so we had another friend who was like the ultimate skeptic. He just thought we were nuts. Mm-hmm. But he was our friend. And one time they were all out of town working, and he was there organizing, kind of like cleaning the shop. I think he had been working on a car. So he was listening to music. He had headphones on. He was like cleaning tools and organizing toolboxes. It was like nighttime. I'm trying to remember what got him to take his headphones off. I guess he heard a noise he heard over his headphones. And so for whatever reason, he took his headphones off. And then he said when he took his headphones off, he said it sounded like a car had hit the other building. Like this huge crashing noise. Mm-hmm. And so he puts the tools down, and he walked over to the open bay door, and he's one of the people. He saw the shadow person standing in the glass doors. And he said when he saw him, or it, there was like some shelves on the wall that were next to the garage door that faced that way. And there was like distributors and just various carburetor parts and cans of like cleaner and stuff. And he said he walked over there, saw the shadow person, and all the stuff on the shelves just shot across the room. Mm. And he left the lights on, left the bay doors open, like just left. And I guess he called my other buddy and was like, "I don't know what's going on at the shop, but this and this just happened." And I remember he was like, "I told you that stuff was going on."
Right.
I remember talking to him, the third guy, the guy who was a skeptic, after that. And he was like, "There's some sort of," he had done some internet research and decided that it was this, and this that were out there. And because they were the only types of things that could, anyway, he turned from a skeptic to an expert immediately.
Yeah, there's nothing that'll make a believer like encountering this stuff.
Oh man, especially something like that. Mm-hmm. That's serious.
And I'm assuming that you could find no damage to the other building. Just heard a big crash.
No, it was just a huge crash noise, and of course there was nothing wrong with it. And I'm pretty sure the coyote that's when the coyote was there, and it was in that other building. Mm-hmm. And his brother, once his other family members started getting like started hearing stuff and seeing stuff. His brother kind of got interested in it. I remember we set his phone up in that other building on audio record for like 30 minutes or something. And there was like this rhythmic knocking noise. It got a bunch of noises, but it was this rhythmic knocking noise. And we went out there, and I remember slapping on stuff, hitting stuff, trying to figure out what out there made that noise. And it was the sheetrock walls. So it sounded like something was walking on them. That's what it was like. And it was like the only thing that made that, like the noise that matched it was the sheetrock wall. So,
Right.
ugh,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've got some pictures of that coyote. We got 2 pictures of that coyote on my old laptop, and I was trying to figure out a good way to transfer them off to send to you. But one of them has got a big old giant orb in it.
Oh, wow.
So there's 2 pictures, just right after another. The one, and this one freaks me out more because of the precedence of the shadow person. The one, the background, because it's like a doorway behind it, the background looks like really dark, like there's something dark standing behind it. And then the other one is huge, white, like giant, long orb in it. I will find those and find a way to get those to you. But
Yeah,
they're
I'd love to see him.
absolutely unsettling.
So you said you talked to him. He's still having stuff happen on this property.
Yeah. He said it's kind of hit or miss as far as the intensity, but he said there's definitely still something going on. Well, he got a picture not very long ago of dare I say Bigfoot type entity, and it's like it's kind of dark. I could probably find that one and email it to you after this. I don't know exactly where it is. It's in my phone somewhere, but it's a real weird looking thing in it. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Real blocky, real wide, super wide head.
This was taken outside on that property or inside the building?
Outside. This was recent. This was in the last year or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would not be surprised if there's some of that around there too.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the more that I listen to your podcasts, everything kind of connects together. It's like, oh, you grow up and you think Bigfoot is like an ape, and then it just can't be. At least not the ones that are everywhere,
Yeah.
There's just not a breeding population of giant ape creatures that lives around here anyway.
Yeah, that's what I base my, I came to the same conclusion just looking at the number of reports I get, and I believe these people. They're very scared, some of them very, very affected, very emotional. Even my wife.
Yeah, they experienced something.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Even my wife, the skeptic and formerly, way more skeptical than now, I'd say, but even she, some of these people come up to me at events and stuff, and she'll hear him talk, and even she's like, whoa, that guy saw something. So they're seeing something, but yeah, I mean, there's the breeding population would leave a mark, on the land.
I mean, it would have to.
Yeah.
It would have to. And it's like, you hear people say like, oh, well, how many bear skeletons have you found? How many bobcat skeletons have you found? It's like, well, yeah, but it would look like human bones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It would. And I mean, the food that they would require, that's
the big thing. Like if you, so, you've been hunting, what it takes to kill your own food, and, they're doing it without weapons and presumably without fire. I mean, come on, this is,
yeah, we can preserve things and cook things and
right.
make it last a long time. That's if they're just they wouldn't have that ability unless they were some advanced something or other. And it just doesn't make sense to me. It's got to be something way more woo than that.
Yeah, either that or it's some kind of animal that has so many advantages that it might as well be paranormal, because nothing else.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing else works like that.
Yeah, exactly. I had a friend that was like, he had come up with the theory. He was like, I think that, and I think this conclusion might have been come to under the influence of something, but he was like, I think that Bigfoot and us started at the same spot, and we evolved into technology and, and they evolved into the spiritual world, and that's why they could just pop in and out. Like if something was as advanced in that way as we are in technology, then it would 100% seem paranormal. It would be paranormal to us, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's a kind of a theory I've played with a little bit. There's no way to prove it, of course. But you wonder if they're master wizards or something, where we chose technology. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they chose the right path, if that's what it is.
yeah. And who knows? But yeah, I think I'm definitely in agreement. Whatever it is, it's something so weird that it's either paranormal or it's so strange that it might as well be.
100%.
You've had some further experiences later on in life.
Yeah. All right. Before that, I've got one written down it's from that time period. And this is the weirdest thing that I have ever physically seen. It was like a visible thing. Other than that,
this is still back in high school then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, as we all know, nearly every culture in the world has little people. Mm-hmm. The Cherokee are no different. And I live in Cherokee Nation. And so I grew up with, we all grew up with the stories from the Cherokee little people, and the old people, like the elders tell, and I'm not like super native, but I am a little bit, but I grew up in a very culturally Native American area. And so, we grew up with these stories. There's some other Cherokee ones that are absolutely terrifying. There's one called a raven mocker, that it lives inside of someone, and then it transfers at the end of the person's life. It transfers from the old person to the whoever's staying in their house with them. And you're supposed to wake up and their head is stretched out from their body. Their neck is stretched out and their head is over yours. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's
I
terrifying.
remember them telling us about that on for Cherokee National Holiday in school. They would come and tell us stories, and that one always freaked me out.
Yeah, that's a horrifying image. Yeah, isn't
it?
Oh yeah.
And so one time in high school, and I don't know if this was a little person, and I'm not going to put any names on it. I'll just tell you what happened because it freaked me and some other buddies out. So we were down in an area. It's creeky kind of area, and I think we were around a low water bridge, and I don't remember exactly where we were, which is kind of confusing, kind of frustrating to me. But we were at this low water bridge, and it was on a dirt road, and I had ridden my motorcycle down there, and my buddy and some of our other friends, different guy, these were just some high school friends, were in his truck, and we were down there throwing fireworks off the bridge and throwing rocks and doing general kid stuff, hooligan kid stuff. And there was this gravel bar in the middle of the creek. And I don't know who saw it first, but somebody was like, "What is that?" And we all looked, and what I saw was, it freaks me out to even think about it, but it was a little stick person, sticks, no thicker than sticks, a little stick figure person. And it had its legs, it was mid-step, but it wasn't moving. It was we had seen it and it had stopped. But it was it looked as if somebody had tied some sticks together and made it look like a person. And we were oh, what is that? Oh my gosh. And so of course, and would not recommend, but we started throwing things at it, rocks at it, and then it was just gone, just right before our eyes, gone.
Wow.
And we all just wow. And I remember I jumped on my bike and just tore out of there. And we met in town at Sonic. And if you're from a small town, then that'll resonate with you. And I asked him, I remember him saying this, but I asked him about it a while ago. like a few months ago, and he was like, I vaguely remember that, but I really don't remember any details from that. Like, he doesn't remember basically any of it. He said he remembers something happening. But when we got back up to town, he was like, dude, the whole way out of there, behind every tree, when my lights would go across them, it looked like something was like looking out from behind the tree.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh my gosh.
Wow. So about how tall was this thing?
2 feet, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
2 feet. And it was close. I mean, it was not very far away. It was not like, oh, what is that? Like, I remember clear as day. Because it was kind of down. We were up on this bridge, and it was not a very tall, but just a old dirt road, low water kind of bridge. And it just looked like it had stopped mid-step, had its legs like crossed, its arms were like out, and then it was just gone. And we all
so interesting.
Freaked out.
So it's the limbs were basically stick-like, but was the head any different? Or?
I really don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't remember a head. I don't remember if it was one stick or if it was like a shape made from sticks. I don't remember.
It's really interesting because one of the Little People reports I have right from the town I live in up here is guy saw it when he and his brother, I think he said he was 8 and his brother was a little younger, I think. And he said it was frozen in a field. It was like, but they came right up on it. Now this was a hairy thing.
Oh gosh! Oh.
And he said it had its eyes shut, and he said it was like a little kid when they close their eyes real tight and like
Oh yeah,
like
if you can't.
Yeah, you
can't. If I don't see you, you can't see me. Kind of a deal.
Exactly. Yeah, and he said his brother went right up on it, and he yelled at his brother like, "Get away from that! Get away from that!" He was really freaked out, but he said it was just frozen there, just like frozen in place.
Oh gosh, that's freaking terrifying.
Yeah, it's so weird. So weird.
Yeah. I had forgotten about that, and then I was like writing down kind of notes about how to order things. I was like, ooh, I can't forget about that because that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, especially with seeing them as you're driving out of the area, or well, the other guy seeing them.
Like, yeah, I didn't see anything, but
Yeah.
I was on a motorcycle, so I was 10 times more wigged out than they were driving out of there because there's something about being on a bike at nighttime that's, especially when you're
a little more vulnerable. Yeah
it's like, don't pay attention, don't look, don't look,
Yeah.
just go.
Yeah, even if it's not armor, I still kind of like that, having that little bit of metal around you with a
Oh
vehicle.
yeah. Oh yeah. All right, so the more recent stuff, a buddy of mine and I go to Kentucky to do like bourbon distillery tours and stuff fairly regularly, like once a year for the past few years. And this is a lot less openly weird, but there's 2 things that were, and this is not even on the same trip. The first time we went, on the way back, we were talking, and this is a guy I grew up with. Like, we have known each other since forever. Like, I think we went to the same like church daycare thing before kindergarten. Like we were friends then, and then we kind of like, he went to a different school, and then we were friends in middle school, and then we kind of became friends again in high school, and now we're still really good friends. And we were coming back the first time, which was a few years ago. I guess it would have been 2019. We were talking, and what had happened was we missed a turn. So we're driving back to Oklahoma from Kentucky across kind of straight west across the southern third of Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, it was like, welcome to Arkansas. What the heck? What's going on here? And I had GPS on, so it should have said, you missed your turn, or, it like recalculating, whatever.
Right, yeah.
But it's like, what the heck? We're not supposed to hit Arkansas. And so we pulled over, and of course, like, had trouble getting cell service. One of us was like like once we finally got directions, it was like, how far off the road did we get? It was like, it says it's going to take us 50 minutes to get back to the last turn, which was, we had accidentally gotten off at one of the interchanges, but it was like, there's no way that we're an hour from there. We just went through there not very long ago. And it was like, we both felt like we had been driving for 15 minutes. But, I mean, it took us an hour to get back, so we drove an hour away from there. And it was one of those things where, like, what just happened?
Right.
And he was like, I don't know. It weirded him out. He was like, we gotta stop. And he got one of the bottles out that we had bought and opened it and took a drink of it, because I mean, it was weird. I have like this background of weird stuff happening. Never anything quite like that, but I'm a little bit more like, oh well. I tend to have the attitude that weird stuff definitely 100% can happen. And when it does, it's probably best not to get freaked out. It's just take it for what it is.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know how to explain it any more than that, but we essentially missed our turn. The GPS didn't tell us anything, and we ended up way further off track than we felt like we had any recollection to remember being. We made the miles, like we were that far away. It took us that long to get back, but
wow. Yeah, so that's essentially missing time we're talking about.
Yes. Yes. That's about all there is to that one. It was absolutely weird. It was one of the more weird, like, realization sensations that I've had. Like, oh yeah, we definitely, because you start putting pieces together in your head. You're like, all right, how long have we been on this road? How long have we been talking? Why didn't the thing go off? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh yeah, there's no logical way to make this happen. We ended up further down the road than either of us remember driving, period.
Yeah.
A couple of trips later, this would have been the last one, which was, I guess, late last year. This one's going to seem weird too. I don't even know how to explain this, but I have a theory that I think you will like, and it might or might not be for clickbait title. I thought about that and I was like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. But so we went to a distillery. We had reservations. This is like the third time we've been there. It's a really super nice kind of modern distillery. We got a really, really nice big open lobby area where they got a restaurant. And so we had reservations to eat lunch, and we got there a little bit early so we could look in the gift shop and blah, 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 blah. So we sit down, and it was like everybody was looking at us. Like everybody, all the staff were like, you would look and somebody would be looking at you. And it's like I don't even know. We talked about it for the rest of the day. Like, it was such a weird experience. But I mean, they were looking at us like we had just murdered somebody in the parking lot and then strolled in and sat down. That's the kind of like, that's how we were. I don't know. That's how they were looking at us. And nobody said anything, but it was like the whole staff. And like, we went into the gift shop afterwards, and I bought a hat and he bought a mug, and she didn't even wrap his mug up. Like, didn't even wrap it up. Like, just like put it in the bag. There you go.
Right.
I don't know. It was 100% the most like bizarre, high strangeness without anything weird, technically weird happening. I mean, it was not a normal thing. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know whether they thought we looked like somebody. I mean, it's not like it was like a fancy place and we were dressed bad, but we were both wearing flannel shirts, and that's what popped into my mind. I was I was thinking about that, and I was like, it was almost like we were the flannel man in this scenario.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, it was, I don't even know how to explain it. Like I said, they were looking at us like we had murdered somebody right out in the parking lot, and then walked in and sat down. Like, they were all like terrified of us. But nobody did anything. They had no reason to be. There was other people in there eating. It was...
Did the other people, the other customers, or, people that weren't staff, did they seem to be reacting to you in any way, or was it just the staff?
It was just the staff. And our waitress was fine. So our waitress was fine. She treated us perfectly normal. And I think the person that sat us was normal. But everybody else, like, there was a guy, they like came out of they had like had a meeting or something, and they came out, several of them came out, and you could tell like this guy is like, some of these guys are like owners or high up people, whatever. And there was a guy in a suit with them, and he came out of there and he was like staring at me. And then he was like on his phone. And you know how if you see somebody on their phone and they're staring at you while they're on the phone, what are the chances that they're not talking about you?
Right, yeah.
And he was doing that. He was standing over by the bar, like talking on his phone, like just freaking staring at me. And we were like talking about it. It was talking about it like while it was happening, like, what is going on? I don't know. It was absolutely, it was high strangeness. That's...
Yeah. So, I'm constructing a story in my head, but of course, who knows? But, some kind of weird flannel man sighting there some days before, and then you guys show up in flannel or something.
I thought about that afterwards. I was like, it was like we were the flannel people in the story, and we were the weird ones to everybody else.
Right, yeah.
I wish I had more of an explanation for that, and I wish I could really convey the level of just absolute weirdness that was, but yeah, I don't know. It's unexplainable. It's a fantastic distillery. I don't want to say its name because I made them seem like they're totally weird about people wearing flannel, but
right.
Fantastic distillery, super nice people.
I'm sure
every other time I've been there.
I'm sure you're not the only people that have ever been to a distillery in flannel.
Well, yeah. Yeah. This place is like nice, but it's not like we showed up to flannel to some super high-end party at a
everybody else
winery or something.
Yeah.
We were there for like lunch, and it's not even in the city. These distilleries are in a small town. It's I think they call it the cutest small town or the nicest small town in the world. So there's anybody that knows anything about Kentucky distilleries, that's, what town it's in then. And they'll be able to know what distillery it is too. So it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
Absolutely bizarre.
That's a strange one. Missing time one trip and then the other, you going back?
Well, so we had a trip in between. Nothing weird happened. Yeah, I think we're going to go back. We might have lost some time on the way back the first time and had a totally bizarre experience the third time. That means this fourth time, if it's as good as the second time was, then
maybe, yeah.
It'll 100%.
Yeah, maybe it's every other time something weird happens.
Yeah, I could live with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I did a good job conveying it, but it was so bizarre. So like high strangeness is the only thing that's the only thing that even gets close to really explaining how absolutely weird it was.
Right. Yeah.
It was like we were talking about how weird it was while we were there, and then we left, and we just like talked about it all day. Like, what the heck? What happened? What was that?
Well, I think you should wear flannel if you go back, just as an experiment, and just see.
I wear flannel a lot. I think that'll be fine.
We are going to get back to Daniel in just a moment, but I'd like to talk about 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy. Allison, what do you know about 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy?
I know it's a relationship-based approach to making your puppy become perfect for you.
It's really about making you and your puppy perfect for each other.
Oh, yeah, this isn't the kind of thing you try to change each other. You just try to grow into becoming perfect for each other.
Yeah, you meet in the middle. You find out about your puppy, how your puppy thinks, which, as you know, Allison,
It's not how I think.
It's not how you think. I'm not sure, though. We might have to put you and a puppy against each other in a quiz bowl-like situation.
Yeah, to see if we think the same way.
It will be scored, and there will be awards. And this will be a patron episode.
Me against a puppy. And if I get second place, am I the first loser?
No. Aren't we all really second place to a puppy? I mean,
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if it's a cuteness contest, I'm just going to bow out gracefully because there's no chance of winning it.
90 Days to the Perfect Puppy can help you if you're having issues with your puppy, if it's things like mouthing and biting, potty training, fear and nervousness, barking, chewing on furniture or shoes or other things the puppy shouldn't be chewing on, crate training, hyperactivity issues, leash training, and more. You can find them at sidhappens.us. Look for the 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy link at the top of the page. They have online sources, video lessons, a secret Facebook group. One-on-one options are available. Again, you can find them at sidhappens.us. Look for the 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy link at the top of the page. So you told me you have this other story about owls. Is this from the same time period as the previous stories?
Yeah, so this is from the same time period as the high school stuff. So this would have been between 2008, 9 to 2012-ish. I think this was probably 2010 or 2011, sometime in there.
Okay.
So there was a couple of abandoned houses, and this becomes pertinent later on, but I grew up in a pretty rural area, and I mean, there's not a lot to do. You go and sit at Sonic or go walk to Walmart or, anybody that grew up in a kind of rural town in a small Midwestern part of the country, that's like, very relatable. And there was a couple of abandoned houses around that were near to my house. And when you're a kid, you're like, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. And one of them, which was a little bit further away from my house than the first one, there was one that was close and we explored it to our content. And then we moved on to this other one that was a little further away and a little bit less convenient to get to. And we went there. The back had French doors on the back and they had been broken. And I had a buddy that had gone there before and he said that the doors were broken. So we went around back and it was like completely furnished. It was as if the people had just got up and left one day. And I mean, the house, the part of the roof was fallen in. It had been vacated for years. But I mean, everything was still there. There was spices in the cabinet. There was clothes in the closets. There were beds. There was a wedding dress. And I remember this very specifically. There was a wedding dress in the closet. There was somebody's high school diploma, like out in the living room. It was kind of junky. People had been in there and kind of messed around a little bit, but it hadn't been in a lot because it was on a pretty secluded dirt road. And we had gone in there a couple of times and just kind of messed around and looked at some stuff and taken some stuff. I think I took some like old vintage Playboys from there, like just all sorts of interesting, just fascinating stuff when you're a kid. And I mean, it was just so weird because I mean, everything was there.
So not to interrupt your story, but very similar place we came upon in the woods, completely abandoned house, still furnished, clothes in the closet, just like you're discussing, down to the newspaper open on the kitchen table and a bowl of cereal.
Oh my gosh.
On the kitchen table. It looked like somebody just got up and left and never came back.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially how this was. The room where they ate and the dining area, like it was kind of fallen in. The floor was kind of fallen in. You would fall through the floor in certain places. I mean, it hadn't been vacated for a long time. But like the wedding dress in the closet, it just like burned into my memory. Why would you just leave? And the house being furnished is just a strange part of the story, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't have anything to do with the owls necessarily, but put a note in the abandoned house for later. So the owl thing, it was like a series of weird owl activities. And I grew up in Native American country, everybody's like, oh yeah, owls are the messengers of death, and owls are this, and owls are that, and so every culture's got their own kind of spin on owls, but there's no culture that doesn't have owls as some sort of significance.
It seems that
And
way.
so
Yeah.
I was coming up. My grandparents had a long driveway, big hill. I was coming up the driveway, and there was something in the road, like it looked like a small rock in the middle of the road. And I was coming up, and as I got over it, it flew up. It was an owl, and it flew right in front of the vehicle, right over the front of the vehicle, like right. I could still see it from the windshield, and it flew, and it flew, and it flew, and then it landed in front of me again. And I was like, oh man, this cannot be good. What am I supposed to do? I remember thinking, like, I don't want to go spend the night at my grandparents' house, because I vaguely remember, like, if an owl is in your way, blocking your path, you don't cross it. It's telling you not to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, it already flew up once. And so I kind of inched closer to it and inched closer. And I had to get right up over it. And it finally flew up, and then it flew away. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go stay with my grandparents tonight. So I'm just going to go home. And not 500 yards up the road, there was another owl in the middle of the road. And this is absolutely bizarre owl activity for around here. I don't know about everybody else's owls, but generally, and I mean, it was dusk. It was night, so it wasn't completely weird, but they generally, I've only seen owls land on the ground during this time period. Other than that, I've only ever saw them during the daytime during this time period. But anyway, so I inched up closer and closer, and the same thing. I had to get right up on it, and it flew off. And I was like, well, I guess I'll take my chances with fate. So I went home.
Did it look like the same owl or the same kind of owl?
It was the same kind, but I'm almost positive it was not the same owl, because it was not very far up, and I would have seen it land, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It was up a ways, and it was right before the road curves. And I mean, it was within view from where the last one peeled off and went into the woods. Because I mean, this is woods. Deep woods are on the right side, and there's a pasture on the left, but there's trees lining the left side of the road too. It's a pretty steep hill, and so that was that night. And I mean, that spooked me. That caught my attention, and so shortly thereafter, I remember it was just like several really weird, out of place occurrences with owls. And one time, shortly, like in this time period, I was standing out in my yard talking to my buddy. Or just a friend had come over, and we had just been hanging out. And an owl flew over. Actually, I think we were out in kind of the backish yard smoking cigarettes because we were little hooligans. Flew over and landed on the ground like 15 feet from us, like close, and was just looking at us. We were like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Like, that's just not typical owl behavior.
How long was this from the owls in the road?
It was not very long. I mean, it was like boom, 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 boom. It was even at that time, I remember being like, there's something absolutely bizarre going on.
So days, weeks?
Probably days, maybe weeks, but
okay.
But I think it all happened within a few weeks, maybe a month.
Okay.
There was another one where I was over at my buddy's shop again, and this is kind of the same time period as all the stuff happened at his shop, and an owl came and landed on a fence post, like, or a fence, kind of the corner post where there's wood, big, like, railroad ties for the corner post of the fence. Mm-hmm. There'll be like one in the middle and then two off to the side to give some structure to the barbed wire fence.
Yeah.
One came, we were standing outside, probably smoking cigarettes again. It was a big part of my life in that time. I'm glad it's not anymore. Anyway, an owl came, and this was a bigger owl. This was a different breed, and I'm not really familiar with the breeds, but the first two in the road were like small, little, like when they were on the ground, it was hard to even tell what they were until they started flying, and then they landed again, and it was like, oh, I can see that now. It's an owl. But this one was a bigger one, and it landed on the fence post, and this was broad daylight, which is, once again, absolutely bizarre owl activity.
Yeah.
And it just landed there and looked at us. I mean, nothing else really came of it. And those are the only ones that I can specifically remember. But I remember telling my friend, one of my older friends, about this, and he was like, oh, and the movie The Fourth Kind had come out a few years before this. And he was like, oh, you should watch this movie. And I watched it, and a big part of that movie, which I'm sure you've seen it. Have you seen it?
I've not, actually, no.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely horrifically terrifying. And maybe, so I'll try to give a basic premise without giving away any spoilers. It's about alien abductions, and it's like kind of set like it's a real movie. The movie portrays itself as if it's real events and if they're interviewing real people, and all of these people, and it's like this, I guess it's, and I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm just kind of generalizing, but I think they're doing regression hypnosis, and all these people are remembering, they're seeing an owl like sitting above their bed or something, and that's like that's how the entity portrays itself to them.
Okay.
And man, I watched that
which is a thing in UFO lore outside of that movie. Yeah.
And it freaked me out. And so I was all wigged out about owls for a while. There was more owl things, but those are the ones that I can specifically remember. It was like 5 to 10 really bizarre owl things. And then later on, we had gone back into that abandoned house. And it was like, I'm pretty sure this was the last, I'm positive this was the last time I went in there. And it was just me and one friend had gone back there just to, I don't know, we were bored and we went back, and we always went in and out through the same door. It was that back French doors because they were broken. And there was like this room where you came in and out of, and we were standing in that room, and I was talking to him, and there was magazines. That's where the vintage Playboys came from. And so we were probably standing there looking at vintage nudie mags, and among other things that were in there. I think there were some records in there. Actually, I know there were some records in there. I definitely got a Temptations Greatest Hits from there that I still have. But we're standing there, and above the door that we had always gone in and out of, was a little wooden wind chime that was an owl. We had first gone into this house. It was all like very, very close timed together, timed to the whole owl stuff, and it was like a whole owl saga in my life. And then I was in this abandoned house that was the house had you don't go into an abandoned house that's full of everything that the people left, and it doesn't have a weird energy.
Yeah, it's always odd, if not creepy. Yeah.
And the house was creepy. It was 100% creepy. It was like not like overtly, like nothing ever happened in there, but yeah, I mean, a wedding dress. Come on.
Yeah, it's like you're walking through someone's memory, or something.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah, it was like, because you immediately start wondering what happened to these people.
Exactly. Yeah. Why did they just leave everything and go?
Yeah, because that just doesn't come out of nowhere. You don't just leave everything in your house and disappear for like there's no good reason for that. So anyway, there was the owl wind chime was hanging, and it was not even, that's the thing. It was above these doors. It was hanging above the doors. It was not in a useful place. It was like up in the corner above the doors. Oh man, that freaked me out. It still freaks me out when I think about it now. I don't know if that was really the end of the owl thing. The owl thing was just like a really short, concentrated happening. I just remember hearing this at the time, but it was some Native American culture, and I don't know if it was Cherokee or not, but that's the one that is most prominent here, was if an owl lands near you and it calls out your name, then you're going to die. And I remember knowing that at the time, whenever the one landed super close to us on the ground in my yard, and being like, oh, please do not say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
Yeah. Ugh.
Needless to say, it didn't.
Daniel, thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank you.
We are magnets for these books. This book has a sticker in it from its previous owner. This is, once again, where we have the Hex book, the story of the Raymeyer murder, the so-called Hex murder from York. This is the trade paperback edition published by the York News Agency. So it's kind of like the local edition. There was a hardcover and then a mass market paperback that were kind of like the national editions. And they were published by one of the big publishers, I think Simon & Schuster. I'm not sure. One of them, but this is the local edition. It's published here in York. The book is called Hex, A Spellbinding Account of Witchcraft and Murder in Pennsylvania by Arthur H. Lewis. These fetch a pretty penny on eBay. We'll put this up in our Etsy shop. Covers a lot of stuff we talk about on the show, like powwow, like the Raymeyer murder, and so forth. And you can read all about it. The book's out of print. To me, it's one of the better retellings of the story.
It's sort of an outsider's perspective, but he's very fair.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get a lot of this sort of dumb Dutchman stuff like was going around in the newspapers at the time. I just saw in the back he wrote a book about, you probably know her from famous postcards that we had at one time, but he wrote a book about La Belle Tarot.
Need more information, Allison. My memory's not that good.
Oh, she's just a famous actress / personality, like the influencer of the turn of the century. Like, doesn't really have a lot of talent, but is cute.
Turn of the century influencers.
Yeah.
Instead of Instagram and TikTok, they had postcards.
Yeah, they just had postcards. Morning and evening delivery, though. So
that's true. That's true. We will have an image of the Hex book in the show notes for this episode. If you click on that, it'll take you to our Etsy shop where you can purchase that and other curiosities of the week. Antique photographs, original art by me, prints by me, some of my books signed, and much, much more, including Strange Familiars t-shirts. I have to say the classic Awoken Tree shirt, sales have picked up on that since we did the High Strangeness Tour shirt, which is cool. Some people are getting both, which I recommend, honestly. You should probably check.
Didn't Sage print both of those for us?
He did.
Yeah, they're both really nice quality t-shirts.
I want to thank everybody who's gotten one of the High Strangeness Tour shirts. The zipper hoodies are sold out. The shirts are dwindling. I'm not sure what sizes we have left, but they seem to be very popular and they're selling quickly. So if you want one, run to your computer. Don't walk, but run carefully. Don't trip over anything.
People have phones in their pockets now, Tim.
Oh, yeah. Run to your pocket and pull out your phone and hop on Etsy and order one before they're gone forever. Our shop name is Lost Grave, one word, but if you go to Etsy and you type in Strange Familiars, you should see our stuff come up. You can click on that. That'll take you to our shop where you can buy all of our wonderful goods. And of course, if you purchase something from our Etsy shop, you are helping the show. It helps us continue and helps us make more content, as does becoming a patron. Patreon.com/strangefamiliars. You can become a patron. You can get extra content. Our patrons get 2 full episodes of Strange Familiars every month. Patreon.com/strangefamiliars. We already released the first of 2 patron episodes for this month. It was our review of the Changeling film, You Are Not My Mother.
And what did you name that episode?
Changeling.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes, Alice, you got your way. And people are celebrating it. Telling it was such a cool title. You win again, Allison.
I think it's a win for Bowie, really.
I didn't know. I spelled it CH-CH. I didn't know if it was CHA. I didn't even bother to look up and see how Bowie did it.
We can take some liberty with that. I don't think he was actually talking about changelings, although he was. He had a whole flirtation with Aleister Crowley, and
he was the Goblin King after all.
And he was the Goblin King, so
I mean, he really did attempt to steal a baby and make a changeling out of it, I presume.
Why couldn't I have just watched Labyrinth?
guess we could watch Labyrinth as one of our movies one time, but I like exposing you to things that you haven't seen before
Yeah, that's true.
and getting your take on it. But yeah, if you didn't hear that, spoiler alert, we both really like that movie. And we'll be doing those, and I think the other patron episode is going to be my really scary segment from Hex Hollow that I talked a little bit about last week. I went back and edited the audio, and there's even more to it that just kind of adds to the creepiness. It's weird. So I think that will be at least part of the second patron show for the month. And we recorded last night a very interesting interview, one you've wanted to do for a long time, not with the changeling, but with a foundling.
A real one.
Yeah. That'll be coming in the upcoming weeks as well, along with much more. We'll be back soon with more Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts, music, books, art, podcasts, and more. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. If you want to hear more or purchase music by Stone Breath, you can go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com. Strange Familiars is on Facebook, facebook.com/Strange Familiars, where you can join the Strange Familiars gathering group. We are on Instagram @Strange Familiars, one word, and you can find us on the web at strangefamiliars.com.
I have a golden cage at home that I would